Hello there everybody, this is Martin here. So today I'm going to do something a little bit special. I'm going to give you a rundown of the Doomsday deck in Legacy, and then I will play a league, for better or worse. So now I find that Doomsday is a card like wrapped in lore and myth and all these, things, and it took me a bit of time to gather up the nerves to try my hand at the deck. I will not at all claim to be anything other than a novice with it, but it was nice to learn that at least to an acceptable level you can play the deck without being like having an IQ of 300 or whatever else you might have been led to believe. I think it's also worth noting that it's not like, I think there are like two camps when it comes to the preconceptions of Doomsday. Either people seem to think that you need to be so good at playing it for it to be good enough, that you have to be like a genius level person or like a scholar of Doomsday having played the deck for like a decade. The other camp is that it's all crap, like that's all like just bullshit, and in fact like the deck isn't really very good. Like it's all like smoke and mirrors, and when it comes down to it, it's just not. Like it might have been once or might never have been, but like I think just to cover all angles here, I think I'll say that I think the truth is probably somewhere in between. Like it's definitely not a bad deck. You can win with it. You can probably win like a bigger tournament with it. And it is definitely hard to play. Like you end up in situations where you might get trapped by thinking that there is a win buried somewhere here from this hopeless situation that you find yourself in. And maybe there is, but maybe there isn't, but you think there is, and then like on Magic Online you have the chess watch, so it's a lot easier to just take your time in key moments, but in a paper tournament, you can't just sit and tank for like 5 straight minutes and then work out what you need to do. So, but anyway, so let's go through the main deck. Okay, so first we have, of course, the namesake of the deck. It's Doomsday. So for anyone that doesn't know, you search your library and your graveyard for 5 cards, and then you exile the rest of your library and graveyard, and you then make a pile of those 5 cards in any order that you like. You don't have to reveal them, obviously. It's all hidden information from your opponent, and you place them face down, and this is your new library. So you basically get 5 vampiric tutors, is another like popular way of looking at it. And the cost of this is that you lose half your life. Rounded up, yeah. So now, if you think about it, in a 60 card deck, like let's say you have 50 cards left when you resolve Doomsday, then out of those 50 cards, there is like literally a myriad of 5 card combinations. So like looking at it that way can feel a bit daunting, but obviously you're never going to make a pile of 5 lands or 5 discard spells or whatever. So like we can shut off a lot of possibilities, and in actual fact, like a lot of the time, like you'll be making the same pile, and I'll get to that. I'll get to this like a couple of piles. But let's first just go through like the section of cards. We have like the skeleton of this deck is pretty close to like the Ad Nauseam Tendrils deck. We have the the 12 blue cantrippy cards, the probes, brainstorms, and ponders. We have 7 discard spells. We're running 3 therapy and 4 duress. We're only running 4 ritual effects, 4 dark rituals, no cabal rituals. We got the 4 line side islands. We also only run 2 petals. And then our tutor effect here is Burning Wish rather than Infernal Tutor. And then we got 3 Doomsday here, and the 4th one is in the sideboard as a wish target. Now, like, a major difference is that we're running 4 Sensei's Divining Top, and this card is absolutely like a crutch in this deck. It's first of all, it gives us like great dinging power. Anyone who's played like Miracles will know this. Anyone who's played Top in Ant knows this. But more importantly, it serves as a catalyst for getting into the pile once we've resolved Doomsday. We tap Top to draw the first card, because that is actually a big issue. Once you resolve your Doomsday, you got your pile lying there. If you don't have a way to draw, then you can't do anything. You just have to pass the turn. And while passing the turn is like sometimes what you have to do, and then just hope or have worked out that you probably won't lose on their turn, the one draw step they get. Like, it is very ideal to be able to draw the first card, and that's also why your cantrips also become a little bit more like premium cards here. Like a probe will draw you the first card without a mana investment, and that means that we're not just throwing away probes willy-nilly. Alright, well, anyways, so the win conditions. As you can see, we actually don't have Tendrils in the main deck. We have it in the sideboard. We have one main deck win condition, and that is the Laboratory Maniac. But Labman is a secondary win condition. It is a way to win through situations where either they have some sort of Tendrils blocker, like Gadok Teague, or like a Leyland of Sanctity or whatever, or in the situations where we can't build up enough Storm. Now, I'll get back to a Labman pile and how that works in a bit. But most of the time, like the vast majority of cases, we will be winning through wishing with the Burning Wish to get our Tendrils of Agony out of the sideboard. Alright. Quickly, the land count is a bit higher than regular Ant. We are running a 9th fetch land because that synergizes really well with the Sensei's Divining Top. We're also we are a bit slower on average than like Ad Nauseam Tendrils, so we want to be able to go a bit longer, and as such, like an extra land is not a bad deal. We're running 2 basic swamps. Like we're not running as many ritual effects, and Doomsday does say black, so having access to black mana is like advisable. Most people I've seen run double island. I've chosen to be greedy and run island, tropical island, to get an extra spot in my sideboard. Well, I see a lot of people having the trop in the sideboard and having double island, and that's definitely nice, but the way I figure it is like a third of our blue mana requirement cantrips are Sensei's Tops, a third of our mana requiring cantrips are Sensei's Tops, and they don't require blue, they just require generic, so I feel like I can skip on that. The one issue is having, like, basically we need to have access to double blue after Doomsday in a vast majority of cases, and having the second island is nice for that. Okay, so before I get to the sideboard, no, scratch that. I'll actually just go to the sideboard now. Now, I've divided my sideboard into 2 groups. We have the just regular utility sideboard cards here, and we have the wish target sideboard cards here. Now, the first group, yeah, we want the decays. We're basically like, as with regular storm decks, we're kind of soft to counterbalance the top. Now the way some Doomsday decks get through this is by playing the Shelldock Isle and Emrakul in the sideboard. But that still requires us to resolve Doomsday through a counterbalance, which, I mean, it's not impossible, but I prefer to have Abrupt Decay. And, like, Xanted Swarms are still, like, just great against show and tell decks, and we're a bit slower than regular Storms, so I think these are maybe even a bit more important. And then I have the 2 Hurkyl's Recall because there's a lot of Eldrazi running around still, and yeah, it's nice to have an answer to that. Okay, so the Wish sideboard. Let me just preface this by saying that I have omitted quite a few cards. There are a lot of like wiggle room, and probably like some Doomsday expert players will like be yelling at their screen if they're watching this because I've omitted some of the really important cards. But let's just first go through what I have, then I'll mention some of the stuff I don't have. Obviously the Tendrils, no brainer. Then I have a Massacre to wish for, which is just great against like Death and Taxes. That really means that like as we are a bit slower, we have to give up some percentages against them landing a Hate Bear, Death and Taxes. So being able to wish for Massacre is just a gigantic beating for them. The 4th Doomsday, that's also pretty self-explanatory. We have a discard spell because sometimes that's what we need. We need to turn our excess Burning Wish into a discard spell. Pyroclasm, this could have been a second Massacre, but I like that this lets us actually like reset the board against Pyromancer, Deathrite Shaman decks. I've done that quite a few times, and that's really nice. We've got a Void Snare. This feels a bit like marginal because like, so in theory we grab this to bounce like Gadog Teeg, where we can't win with Tendrils if Gadog Teeg's on the board, but then we have Lab Maniac for that, so I'm not really sure. This also has like corner case applications like bouncing Iona out of Reanimator, which is really nice. Like, it doesn't bounce Chalice though, so I don't know. I feel like it's nice to have this option, but I'm not sure if it couldn't be something better, but it's there for now. And then this is a really like cute card. You need to just ignore the first 4 lines of text. The relevant lines here are that this cycles by sacrificing a land. And why is that relevant? Well, it lets us draw a card. So this is a way for us to wish for a free, quote-unquote, draw spell that lets us draw into our first card of the Doomsday pile. The negative side of this is that it doesn't count as a spell, so it doesn't count towards Storm. So yeah, Edge of Autumn is, I think, one of the cards on the fringes. I think a lot of people have moved away from playing it. I don't know if it's correct to have it, but I'm trying it out. So just to mention briefly a couple of the sideboard cards, the wish targets that aren't here, that you will see a lot of the time. One is, like, a lot of people like to have a draw 4. That's the nickname of a couple of cards, Cruel Bargain and Infernal Contract. They read black, sorcery, draw 4 cards, and lose half your life rounded up. So that's a way to, using only black mana and not having to use blue, that we can draw 4 of our 5 cards in the pile, and usually win that way. It requires us burning wishing for it, but it's a way to get around Red Elemental Blast and Pyroblast, which we usually can't really beat because we need to use a blue spell to draw the first cards in our pile, but I'll get back to that when I go through the piles. Another card is Time Spiral. A lot of people use that to generate like a lot of Storm. You can loot Doomsdays, you can resolve Doomsday, put 2 Burning Wish in the pile, or have like a Burning Wish in your hand. Then you Burning Wish for Time Spiral, you cast Time Spiral, and then maybe with the cards in your hand, the Doomsday in the graveyard, and the 5 cards in your new library, you might have like 7 or 8 cards. So that becomes the new library. You can generate a lot of storm that way. But I think having Laboratory Mania kind of makes that a bit redundant, because that's if we need to, say if someone has like 35, 40, 50 life or whatever, we need to really get to high enough storm count. Well, I mean, Labman gets us there without having to worry about storm count. So yeah, alright. Now I'll just go through a couple of the standard piles. Now, there are two groups of piles. There is the kill this turn pile, and then there's the pass the turn pile. I won't go over any pass the turn piles, as they are incredibly context dependent on like what your opponent has going on. The kill them right now piles, there are like a couple, and this is by far the most standard of the standard piles, I think. It starts with Ideas Unbound on the top and finishes with Burning Wish on the bottom. And basically, they all start with these three, usually. And then we have Pro Burning Wish. And just quickly, this card is the linchpin. It's in nearly all the piles. It's in all the standard piles, let's put it that way. We don't mind having to discard at the end of the turn, because the game will be over. So it's just draw 3 for 2. Now, how you go off exactly and what the requirements are will depend on what the storm count is in relation to your opponent's life total, how much mana you have floating, and how you are able to draw the first card. Now, with these standard piles, we're going to assume that the coast is clear. We have discarded our opponent's last Force of Will, and we are now able to go off. We will need at least 2 blue mana for this. And if we're using top to draw, we will need 3 mana. 2 blue and a generic. And ideally we want 4 mana after Doomsday. Let me go through it. I'll presuppose that we have cast a Dark Ritual, we've cast a Doomsday, and we've cast a Lion's Eye Island. Those are the 3 spells we've cast this turn. We have Storm 3. Any more spells cast this turn will make it easier, and you know what I mean. So we will need to have, if our opponent is at 20 life, we will need to have 4 mana after Doomsday. So the LED plus, let's say, an untapped island. After Doomsday, we sack the LED for blue, so we have 3 blue, effectively 4 blue in the pool. Storm is 3. Remember, Dark Ritual, Doomsday, Lion's Eye Island. So we activate top by tapping it, and we draw Ideas Unbound. So now, top goes on top of our pile, and Ideas Unbound is in our hand. We use 2 of our 4 blue mana to cast Ideas Unbound, taking Storm to 4, and drawing these 3 cards. We use 1 of our remaining 2 blue mana to cast the top. Oops. Sorry, just messed up the order there. So now we have cast top. Storm is 5. We cast an LED that's in our hand and the other LED that's in our hand. So Storm is 7. We sack these LEDs for 3 black, 3 red. So now our mana pool is black, 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 red, 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 blue. We draw with the top to draw the probe. Now top is on top of our library. We cast probe for life, that takes it to Storm 8, and we draw the top. Now we use the remaining blue mana, meaning we have black, 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 red, red, red floating, and cast the top. Storm is 9. Cast the top. We draw with the top, drawing the Burning Wish, the last card in our library. We cast the Burning Wish for red, red, so now we have black, 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 red floating. Storm is 10. And we go get our Tendrils of Agony, which we have exactly enough mana to cast. And we storm them out for 22 life loss. Now, if we only have 3 mana floating instead of 4, if we only have the LED, that means we have to put Burning Wish second from the bottom, and the bottom card basically be just a blank, because we can only cast top once. So we draw with it, we cast the Ideas Unbound, drawing the top and 2 line side diamonds, and then we cast the top for our last mana. That means that the next card we draw at the top has to be Burning Wish, but that means we only get to storm them for 9. So I mean, if you have already cast, like, say, a Petal in this turn, or any other spell, then that's enough, and it often will be enough, but this was presupposing we had 3 spells cast this turn. Also, like, notice that I just casually said we cast Probe for life. I mean, if we don't have the life, we are losing half our life after Doomsday, and then we need another mana to be able to cast Probe for blue mana. So all of this is like, you have to add and subtract and all that. Okay, so that's one standard pile. That's probably the most common pile. Another pile, the one we want to use in case we can't kill with a storm for some reason, is the Laboratory Maniac pile. And here there are variations of the same pile, but this is basically like a pile that helps us kill that way. And this one actually requires only 3 mana, not 4, after the Doomsday, but it then does require us to be able to lose 4 more life casting 2 probes. It also presupposes that we have the Sensei's top. If we don't have top, then that's fine. We'll need a mana, but then we can cast it. We can draw the first card with Ponder or Brainstorm or even a Probe. So what we do here is, let's say we have 3 blue mana floating again from the Lineside Island. We draw with Sensei's top, the Ideas Unbound. Use 2 blue mana to cast Ideas Unbound, drawing us the top, the LED, and a Probe. We have 1 blue mana floating. We will play top with the 1 blue mana floating. Top is in play. We have nothing floating. Then we sack the LED that we just drew for blue mana. So we have 3 blue floating, and we probe once with 3 blue floating, drawing the second probe. We probe again, drawing Laboratory Maniac with 3 blue floating, and we cast Laboratory Maniac for our 3 blue. Now, here is where it gets interesting, because if we're playing around them having removal, we just pass the turn. There are no cards left in our library. If we just get another turn, our draw step will end the game and win it for us with Lab Man in play. Effectively, that means they have to then use their removal before our draw step, and in response, we can tap Sensei's Divining Top to draw and win. Now, that's easier said than done a lot of the time. If they have removal, they might also have lethal board pressure, in which case we can't just wait. So, like, ideally they don't have removal, we just tap with top and win on the spot. So that is another way of this deck wins, and we keep this Laboratory Maniac in the main deck because it is quite handy to have it as an out. Sometimes, like, we have to, like, it's also a lot better in pass the turn piles. I know I said I wasn't gonna really go over them, but just as an example. So yeah, I wasn't gonna go through the standard pile or the pass the turn piles, but just quickly just saying that a lot of the time when you pass the turn with having resolved Doomsday, you won't be able to generate enough storm in the next turn to win with Tendrils, so having Labman there is really handy. So with that said, thanks for watching. I'm gonna go try and play a Legacy League with Doomsday.